Have you ever walked into your own home after a long day and somehow felt even more exhausted instead of relieved? You close the door, put your bag down, sit on the couch, and yet your nervous system never fully softens. Your body stays slightly tense. Your mind keeps scanning. You feel mentally cluttered without knowing exactly why. And over time, you start assuming the problem is you. Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe you just need better routines, more discipline, less screen time, more meditation, more resilience. But what if part of the exhaustion isn't coming from your workload, your hormones, your ADHD, or your stress levels alone? What if your environment itself is quietly keeping your nervous system in a low-grade state of activation every single day? This becomes especially important after 40, and especially important for women with ADHD, high sensitivity, chronic overwhelm, or years of accumulated stress. Because the nervous system changes over time, the brain becomes less tolerant of constant stimulation, hormonal shifts affect stress regulation, recovery becomes slower, cortisol patterns become more fragile, and suddenly, things that used to feel manageable start feeling exhausting. Noise feels sharper, visual clutter feels heavier. Open tabs in your environment start acting like open tabs in your brain. And the difficult part is that most people never recognize the environment as the problem because modern life has normalized overstimulation to such an extreme degree that we no longer notice how dysregulated most spaces actually are. Your nervous system is constantly scanning your surroundings for signals of safety or stress. This is not spiritual language. It is biology. The brain is continuously processing light, sound, movement, color, unpredictability, visual complexity, social cues, temperature, textures, and spatial organization. Long before conscious thought happens, your nervous system is already deciding whether an environment feels safe, chaotic, threatening, demanding, calming, or exhausting. This process is largely automatic, which means you can consciously tell yourself you are relaxing while your nervous system is still physiologically preparing for more input. One of the biggest misunderstandings about nervous system exhaustion is that people think only dramatic stress matters. They imagine trauma, major life events, emergencies, deadlines, or conflict. But modern nervous system fatigue is often created by low-grade chronic overstimulation repeated thousands of times across ordinary days. A loud refrigerator hum, harsh white lighting, constant notifications, too many visible objects, no visual boundaries between work and rest, clutter that silently signals unfinished decisions, colors that feel agitating, streets with constant movement outside the window, open-plan spaces with no containment, background television running all evening, bright blue screens late at night. None of these things alone destroys the nervous system. But together, over years, they create a state where the brain never fully powers down. For ADHD brains, this becomes even more intense because attention is not only about focus. Attention is also filtration. Neurotypical brains are often better at filtering irrelevant environmental information automatically. ADHD brains tend to process more incoming stimuli simultaneously. The nervous system notices more movement, more sound, more objects, more emotional energy, more visual complexity, which means the home environment matters enormously. A chaotic home does not simply look messy to an ADHD nervous system. It creates cognitive load. The brain keeps tracking unfinished information. Every visible object becomes another micro-input requiring energy to process. This is why some people can enter certain homes and immediately feel calmer without understanding why. The nervous system responds before the conscious mind creates a story about it. You walk into a softly lit room with visual coherence, natural textures, quiet acoustics, stable organization, and enough open space for the eyes to rest, and suddenly your breathing slows down. Your shoulders drop. Your thoughts become less fragmented. Your nervous system feels held instead of pulled in 10 different directions at once. Historically, humans evolved in environments with dramatically lower stimulation levels than modern homes. For most of human history, evenings became darker gradually. Soundscapes were softer and more predictable. Artificial light did not blast directly into the retina late into the night. Spaces were smaller, slower, and more rhythmically structured. Even architecture often reflected nervous system principles without consciously calling them that. Older European towns, traditional Japanese interiors, Mediterranean courtyards, monasteries, libraries, and historical homes often contain a sense of visual regulation that modern environments have largely lost. There is proportion, containment, material warmth, predictability, rhythm, space for the eyes and nervous system to rest. Modern interiors often prioritize stimulation over regulation. Bright white kitchens, open visual overload, multiple screens, aggressive overhead lighting, constant media exposure, endless visible products, highly reflective surfaces, fast visual contrast. Many newer homes are designed for image culture and stimulation rather than biological calm. They photograph well, but they do not necessarily feel good to live inside for a sensitive nervous system. And this matters because the nervous system associates home with recovery. If the recovery environment itself becomes overstimulating, the body never fully exits survival mode. This is one reason some people wake up tired even after sleeping. Sleep duration alone does not guarantee restoration. The nervous system requires periods of actual downregulation. If the environment remains mentally loud, the brain continues processing long after the body has technically stopped working. Women after 40 often feel this intensely because they are simultaneously carrying cognitive load, emotional load, hormonal changes, invisible planning responsibilities, digital overload, and years of accumulated nervous system activation. Many high-functioning women have spent decades pushing through environments that were never truly supportive to begin with. Bright offices, constant multitasking, noise, emotional labor, hyperproductivity culture, caretaking roles, social pressure, performance pressure. Then they come home into another environment filled with stimulation and wonder why rest no longer works the way it used to. The important thing is that nervous system safety is not about creating a perfect Pinterest home. This is not about perfectionism, expensive furniture, minimalism aesthetics, or unrealistic standards. In fact, perfectionism itself is often deeply dysregulating. The goal is not visual perfection. The goal is biological softness. A home should feel like a place where the nervous system can stop scanning so intensely. One of the most powerful concepts here is visual noise. Visual noise is the amount of information your brain has to process simply by existing in a space. Too many colors, too many visible objects, too many open shelves, too many patterns, too many unfinished piles, too many competing focal points. The nervous system interprets visual complexity as cognitive work, which means reducing visual noise often creates surprisingly immediate relief. This does not mean becoming emotionally detached from your belongings. It means becoming intentional about what your nervous system is continuously exposed to. Many people notice that even removing 20% of visual clutter creates measurable calm. Suddenly, the brain no longer has to unconsciously monitor hundreds of small pieces of information all day long. Lighting matters enormously too. Harsh overhead lighting increases alertness because biologically, bright, direct light signals daytime activation. Warm, indirect lighting communicates safety and evening regulation. This is why candlelight, lamps, soft amber lighting, and natural light often feel emotionally calming. The nervous system evolved around firelight and sunlight gradients, not bright LED panels at 10 p.m. Sound matters just as much. Many people underestimate the impact of low-grade noise stress. refrigerators humming, traffic outside, televisions running in the background, loud ventilation systems, constant podcasts, endless digital input. Silence has become so unfamiliar that many nervous systems never truly experience recovery anymore. Even introducing short periods of intentional quiet can dramatically change mental fatigue levels over time. There is also an emotional layer to environments that people rarely discuss openly. Homes often accumulate unresolved emotional energy, not mystical energy necessarily, but psychological associations. Rooms connected to stress, work bleeding into rest spaces, unfinished projects constantly reminding the brain of pressure, closets filled with identities that no longer fit, objects associated with guilt, obligation, or overwhelm. The nervous system remembers emotionally loaded environments even when we consciously ignore them. This is why small environmental rituals can become deeply regulating. Opening windows in the morning, lowering lights in the evening, making one corner of the home visually quiet, using softer textures, introducing natural materials, creating predictable rhythms inside the environment itself. The nervous system loves rhythm because rhythm reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is metabolically expensive for the brain. One practical shift that helps many ADHD and highly sensitive women is creating visual containment instead of perfect organization. Open storage often overwhelms the nervous system because everything remains visible all the time. Closed baskets, cabinets, softer transitions, and defined zones create psychological boundaries that reduce cognitive leakage. The goal is not becoming a minimalist monk. The goal is helping the brain stop tracking everything simultaneously. Temperature and air quality also influence regulation more than most people realize. Overheated rooms can increase irritability and fatigue. Stale air affects concentration and sleep quality. Natural airflow and cooler sleep environments often support deeper nervous system recovery. The body is constantly interpreting physical conditions as information about safety and stress. Another important factor is whether your home allows your nervous system to complete stress cycles. Many modern environments keep people partially activated late into the night through screens, endless information, work notifications, and digital stimulation. But biologically, the nervous system needs transitions. Evening should feel different from midday. The body needs cues that activation is ending. Lower lights, less input, softer sound, reduced visual complexity, slower pacing. Historically, human environments naturally created these transitions. Modern life often removes them completely. And this is where many women accidentally become trapped in chronic survival mode without realizing it. They think exhaustion means weakness, when in reality, the nervous system has simply not experienced enough true recovery conditions for years. The beautiful thing is that nervous systems can respond surprisingly quickly once environments become more supportive. Not perfectly, not instantly, but meaningfully. Many people notice reduced anxiety simply from changing lighting, better sleep from reducing evening stimulation, more mental clarity from lowering visual clutter, less irritability from quieter environments, more emotional resilience from creating spaces that feel biologically safe. You do not have to redesign your entire house overnight. In fact, trying to overhaul everything at once often becomes another form of stress. Start smaller. Ask yourself one honest question. Does my environment help my nervous system soften, or does it keep it subtly activated? Then begin with one area, one lamp instead of harsh overhead lighting, one quiet corner without screens, one room with reduced visual noise, one evening routine with lower stimulation, one basket that creates containment instead of visual chaos, 1 hour without constant media input. Small environmental changes repeated consistently often regulate the nervous system more effectively than dramatic life overhauls that cannot be sustained. Because ultimately, your home is not just a physical location, it is a nervous system environment. And after years of overstimulation, performance pressure, and chronic cognitive load, many women do not actually need more intensity. They need environments that finally allow the body to feel safe enough to exhale. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments. What is one thing in your home that might be quietly draining your nervous system? Maybe it's clutter, maybe it's noise, maybe it's harsh lighting, unfinished projects, or simply too much visual input. I'm curious to know what you notice after watching this video. And if you're a woman over 40 navigating ADHD, overwhelm, burnout, or a sensitive nervous system in a very loud world, consider subscribing to Complex Brain Living. Every week, we explore how to create more energy, more calm, and a stronger nervous system through science, lifestyle design, longevity, and restorative living. Because living well is not about pushing harder. It's about creating a life your nervous system can actually thrive in. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.